are going to study something very interesting that is related to life, that is nutrition in animals. Everybody must have eaten something in the morning or during the lunch time. Why you people have eaten the food? Everybody knows that it is the source of energy for all organisms, is the food. And especially human being, why do they eat food? What is the need for the food? The food is needed for growth, food is needed for the repair of the body, food is needed for various functioning of the body. Let us go a little bit in detail. Food for growth. You know, when you were in nursery classes or in smaller classes, you were not of this size, but now you have become taller, fatter and all. Why this happened? This has happened because you have grown up. For that growing process, we need food. Secondly, any damage happens to the tissues of the body where repairing is required. And for that, new tissues have to be formed that we are getting from the food which we are eating. And regular functioning of the body, all vital functioning which is happening in the body is also require energy. That energy also we get from the food. So, today in this class, we are going to study about animal nutrition. After all, the animal nutrition, what it includes? It includes the requirement of the nutrients, the mode of intake of the food, and its utilization in the body. What is the nutrient requirement? We require carbohydrate, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, water, roughage, etc. And what is the mode of intake? Different organisms have different modes of intake of the food. So we use our hands to pick the food and then put it in the mouth. Later on, it undergoes a long process called digestion. And this digestion results in the breaking down of the food, and finally the components which are formed out of it are used for the various activities of the body. Now, let us study something in detail about digestion. So the components of the food are broken down into simple substances by a process called digestion. How does it happen? It is happening by the digestive process. Now, let's see what are the different ways of taking food. Some animals scrape the food, that means scraping. Some are chewing the food. Some are siphoning the food. Some are capturing the food and swallowing it. Some are sponging and sucking the food. But in this chapter, we are mainly concentrating on the digestion of human, the digestive process in humans. The food is taken through the mouth, digest it in the digestive tract. The digestive tract is also known as the alimentary canal. Let us see the picture of the digestive system. See what all are the parts of it. The digestive system of human being consists of buccal cavity, that is the mouth, food pipe or esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum and anus. These parts together forms the alimentary canal or the digestive tract. Human digestive system consists of the first part, which is called the mouth and the buccal cavity. Let us understand more about that. You know, there are two types of teeth are there in the two sets of teeth are there in the mouth. When you were young, they were called as milk teeth, and that was broken off and then it is replaced by a permanent set of teeth. And the permanent set of teeth are having different types in it. Let us see what all are they. They are incisors, canine, premolar and molar. What do we do with these incisives? We bite the food and take in. Canine is helping in tearing the food. Premolar and molar are helping in grinding the food. Because of that, the food becomes smaller in size and it gets mixed with the saliva from the mouth. All of you must be knowing about the toothache. How does it happen? It happens because of the tooth decay. Harmful bacteria which grows in the leftover food in the mouth releases acids and damage teeth, and that is called tooth decay. It causes toothache. That's why your parents and elders advise you to clean your teeth after every meal. And what is the role of the tongue which is there in your mouth? Different regions in the tongue is meant for tasting, and it also helping in pushing down the food into the next part of the digestive system. When the food enters into the windpipe, we feel choking and hiccups because the food once enters into the windpipe, it can block the entry of air, and that may be proof fatal to all of us. That's why while eating we have to take care that we should not speak loudly or laugh loudly, so that there are chances of choking and hiccups. The next portion of the digestive system is the food pipe, which is otherwise known as esophagus. What is it actually? It's a long pipe made of muscles, and it is connecting mouth to the stomach. Here the food is pushed down by a special kind of movement which is known as peristaltic movement. Peristaltic movement means nothing but wavy movements. So no digestion of food is happening in the esophagus. It is just pushing the food from the mouth to the stomach. Let's pass on to the next part of the digestive system, that is the stomach. It's a thick-walled, U-shaped, flattened back. The inner lining of this secretes mucus and hydrochloric acid and digestive juices. And the digestive juices secretes the proteins. They all are providing a medium for the easy digestion of the food. Next part of the human digestive system is the small intestine. The small intestine is a highly coiled, and it is said to be 7.5 meters long. Imagine average human being might be having a height of 1 meter 70 centimeters or 1 meter 75 centimeters, like that. And then imagine the coiled structure of small intestine, which is 7.5 meters long. And why it is so long? It is so long because it has to absorb the digested food materials and then send into various tissue systems to get it oxidized into energy. And there are certain glands associated with this also. One of the glands which is joining towards the beginning of the small intestine is the liver and pancreas. Liver is said to be the largest gland in our body, which secretes bile juice that is stored in a sac called gallbladder. Bile juice helps in the process of digestion of fats. The next gland associated is pancreas. What is the role of the pancreas? Pancreatic juice acts on carbohydrates, fats and proteins and make them into simpler compounds. And the digested food is absorbed by intestinal villi. What are the villi? They are finger-like projections which are present on the inner wall of the small intestine, and this process of absorption of the digested food is known as assimilation. Let us study now about the next part of the digestive system, that is large intestine. It is wider and shorter and only 1.5 meters in length. So it is comparatively shorter than that of the small intestine. Its function is to absorb water and salt. And the remaining undigested waste passes into the last portion of the digestive system, that is rectum, and it is removed through anus. And this process of removal of solid waste through the anus is known as egestion. Now, you must have heard the term diarrhea. What is diarrhea? Diarrhea is passing a watery stool due to infection, food poisoning or indigestion. So, what we do when we suffer from such kind of disease? One remedial method is that taking oral rehydration solutions, and it can be made at home by taking boiled and cooled water with a pinch of salt and some sugar dissolved in it. This is the way in which digestion takes place in human beings. Now, let us see digestion in grass-eating animals. How does it happen? Grass-eating animals store the quickly swallowed grass in a part of stomach called rumen, where it gets partially digested to form the cud. And when the animal is resting, this cud returns to the mouth in small lumps, and the animal again chews it. This process is called rumination, and hence the animal is called as a ruminant. Cecum is a part in their digestive system. It is a large sac found between the small intestine and large intestine, which holds bacterium that digests cellulose. Now you must have understood that why human beings cannot digest cellulose. The reason: we don't have a cecum and we don't have any bacteria which is helping in the digestion of the cellulose. Now, how feeding and digestion takes place in very small microscopic organisms like amoeba. You know that amoeba is a single-celled organism and has a cell membrane and a nucleus and vacuoles. Its movement takes place by the finger-like projections called pseudopodia. This pseudopodia is not only used for the movement, but also it helps in the capture of the food. When this organism sees a food particle, it flows its cytoplasm around it and captures that food material. Then it will be converted into a food vacuole where digestion takes place. When amoeba sends us food, it pushes out its pseudopodia and engulfs the food and forms a food vacuole. And the digestive juices are secreted into it, and the food is broken down into simpler substances and get absorbed. So, today we have gone in a journey where we have understood what is happening, the morsel of food which is entering into our mouth, and finally when it is digested out of the body. Similarly, we have also seen the feeding of the grass-eating animals and that of a very small organism, microscopic organism called amoeba. So, in order to understand what all things really you got it, we will do the spiral work, level 1 and level 2 also, so that you will be able to check your knowledge on this chapter. Thank you very much.
Have you ever realized that at your deepest, most inner core, you're not really you? Well, think about it. The minute you eat something and swallow it and it passes in through your gastrointestinal tract, that's the external environment. That food that you just took in was a part of the outside world. And the tract that it's going to follow in through from your mouth till the point that you expel it in the bathroom is actually not you. That's the external environment. How weird is that? So, in this video, we're going to do an overview of the gastrointestinal tract. I'll talk about each of the individual parts and what their main overall functions are, and then in subsequent videos I'll go through each of these individual parts and give a more detailed explanation of how they do what they do. Alright, so starting off, of course, the first place our food is ever going to go to is our mouth, or the oral cavity. The main functions that we have achieved in the mouth include chewing, the morselation of food. Also very important is hydrolysis. As you might recall from biochemistry, hydrolysis is just the enzymatic digestion or the enzymatic breakdown. Where chewing is the physical breakdown, hydrolysis is the enzyme-assisted breakdown of food. And so as we break down food, the goal here is to make what's called a bolus, just a sphere of digested food that can then be swallowed and passed on into our next structure. And so, after we swallow the food, where do you think it goes? This guy right here. And that's the esophagus, the esophagus. And this, I think, is one of the more boring parts of the GI tract, because all we do here is just propel our bolus. We just pass it on down to the next guy. We don't really even do anything to it. Kind of boring. But the next guy is a little more exciting. Now we get to the stomach. A lot of action going on in the stomach. One of my favorite parts of the GI tract. The stomach is responsible for multiple things, including churning, which is a lot like chewing, except that there are sort of more dimensions of contraction affecting the food and breaking it down. We also have hydrolysis going on here, the enzyme-assisted breakdown of food. In addition to that, you can store food in your stomach if it's not time to pass it on to the next component of your GI tract. And the overall goal here is to make what's called chyme. So we take our bolus and we sort of melt it down, per se, into this more fluid type of substance that we can pass on to our intestines. So we're moving on now to our intestines. So starting from about this point right here, we get our duodenum, and then this kind of, circulates around here, and then we end up at this point. Everything in between, I'll draw it way out here, I'm just going to group together for right now as the small intestine. The small intestine. And there are 3 parts to this, and we'll talk about that in a subsequent video, but the main functions that we achieve here are hydrolysis, and also the absorption of nutrients. And notice this is kind of the first part of your GI tract that you're finally taking in some of the breakdown food products and using them for nutrition to make other products in your body. Great. So now that we've gone through the small intestine, what do you think shows up next? So starting from after the small intestine ended, all the way through this lined structure right here, we are going to be passing through the large intestine. The large intestine. Do you guys remember the other name for the large intestine? It starts with a C. If you said colon, absolutely right. So the colon is also one of the more boring parts of the GI tract, because really all we have going on here is absorption, but not of nutrients per se, more like things like water or ions or vitamin K. Just things like that are absorbed in the large intestine, so not a very high yield place for acquiring nutrients. And then after that, we're going to pass food on to this structure here, and this is called the rectum. The rectum. Kind of like the stomach of the GI tract. The rectum serves for storage. We hold on to our processed food, if we can call it that anymore at this point, and it's held there until we deem it an appropriate time to expel the food. And so when it's time to expel the food, it'll come out through the anus, through expulsion. Expulsion. So those are all the key components of our gastrointestinal tract. There are some other accessory organs that are involved here in digestion, and I'll have videos to talk about them as well. Those include things like the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, and those will come up in subsequent videos.